Hey guys, what's happening and welcome to another episode of Metal Viking with me, your host Viking, and today I just want to apologize to you guys first before getting into this review. I'd like to apologize for this past weekend where I didn't upload an episode of The Art of Viking on Friday. I'm still busy with that artwork. I have started it. I just need to finish one of the characters before eventually inking it and then coloring it. So hopefully I'll have most of that done by the end of today, if not by early tomorrow morning after I've uploaded tomorrow's video. And then depending on how far I get with that, I will make up for this weekend's setback by giving you guys 2 videos tomorrow, provided the artwork's done. So you'll get a Viking Reacts and you'll get Friday's Art of Viking, last Friday's Art of Viking episode tomorrow, and you'll probably still get another Art of Viking episode this Friday because I don't have anything going on this next weekend so far as I know. So the schedule should start becoming normal now. I know it was meant to be a flowing schedule from this last week, but as I said, this weekend had me totally busy. I was out most of the time working and stuff, so it was just a complete and total crazy train. Excuse the pun. So yeah, today I'm going to be reviewing my second favorite In Flames album, which is Soundtrack to Your Escape. I would start off by reviewing my first one, but I'm sure by now you know my stance on A Sense of Purpose, and I'm sure you've heard me speak about it in part 2 of my top 10 favorite bands and artists of all time videos, which was one of the first videos I did on my channel. If you haven't seen that, go check it out. And you've probably seen me post numerous posts either on my official page, or for those of you who know me personally, you probably see me post about it a lot on my personal Facebook page. So you pretty much know where I stand on that album. I'm not saying I won't review it, but I'll most likely review it last out of In Flames' entire discography. So I thought we'd start off with my second favorite album of theirs, because this particular album is actually one of the most shunned of their albums within the metal community. Not so much the mainstream music community. I mean, it was actually pretty well received at the time. No, it wasn't like a big hit that it was like in the top 10 or whatever in the Billboard music charts. But it did perform pretty well for its time, and it was very well received amongst a lot of mainstream music lovers, which is a good thing, because In Flames' sound has evolved so much that they've not only divided their own original fan base, but they've also managed to gain new fans from music communities who aren't normally into heavier styles of music. Not to say that their recent stuff is particularly heavy, but it's heavy for a lot of mainstream music listeners. So they would consider it heavy in comparison to their previous material, which they wouldn't bother to check out. Because, I mean, after all, melodic death metal is a form of extreme metal. So yeah. This particular album, I've mentioned this before in my previous video, what is trance metal, but this is the album that I believe, in theory, started trance metal, especially for bands such as Bloodstained Child. This seems to have been the album that more or less paved the way for these guys, because this particular album relies so heavily on keyboard synths. And the kind of keyboard synths used here may not be trance synths per se, but they've got that ambient touch to them that makes it not sound as if you're listening to a lot of the songs from Reroute to Remain, an example being Cloud Connected. that definitely was not ambient. That was just synths just there for the sake of helping the melody of the song. And not that that's a bad thing. I mean, that's one of my favorite In Flames songs of all time. But you get the point. The synths were more or less there. It's just a experimentation at that phase. This album, it was purely meant to give a new sound to melodic death metal, and basically it thus created this very ambient style of metal, because while being a heavy album, it is quite heavy, at the same time it's got a very ambient feel. And it's not just the keyboard synths that do that, it's also the guitar work and the kinds of riffs they decided to write for this album, and not just the riffs but the tuning of the guitars, and even the few songs where there are guitar solos, which isn't many now that I think of it. I think Evil in a Closet is the only song on this album with a guitar solo, because normally In Flames have guitar solos on their albums, but in this particular case they opted not to. Instead of guitar solos, they did more like melodic build-ups to the final parts of the song, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. But when it comes to the metal community, you're either team guitar solo or team non-guitar solo. That means you either enjoy breakdowns or just no guitar solos at all, or even if you belong on this camp and enjoy both, you're still seen as the one side within the metal community, particularly through the eyes of a metal elitist. So yes, this album has, I think it's 12 or 13 tracks. I can't exactly remember how many tracks there are, but it's definitely within the region of 12 to 13, and each and every single one of these tracks is amazing. There are some that are better than others. Like, for example, my personal favorite tracks off of this album are The Quiet Place, Dead Alone, Touch of Red, My Sweet Shadow, Evil in a Closet, and what was that other song called? In Search for I, and Bottled. Like, these are absolutely amazing songs. I just love listening to this album in its entirety, and if any of you are curious as to what melodic death metal sounds like, I know most reviewers, especially who review metal music, will say go out there straight out and check their older material or other melodic death metal bands like Arch Enemy or Soilwork. Now, I'm not saying you mustn't do that. Go ahead and do that. But if you want to ease into it, either check out A Sense of Purpose, because A Sense of Purpose, although mostly alternative metal, it still retains some melodic death metal elements. Either check out A Sense of Purpose or check out this particular album, or even Come Clarity, which was the album that came out after this one. I'd say check out those first if you want to sort of ease into this genre without being bombarded with really extreme music. Like, at least here you'll get a lot more melody, and it's a little bit more, if you want to say, radio friendly in a sense. But I don't see how metal being radio friendly is a bad thing. It's actually a really good thing. It gains more exposure, plus it draws in more fans, and any good musician should know, gaining new fans while writing music you love is a good thing. So I don't see the problem with radio friendly metal. So anyway, this particular album, as I said, it was more or less the founder for trance metal. This album came out 2 years prior to the album that Bloodstained Child released, where they decided to go full on with their signature trance metal sound. And since Bloodstained Child seemed to copy In Flames in terms of their discography by changing their sound with every single album and more or less dividing their fan base, and their bassist Rio, who left the band recently, was such a huge In Flames band. Like, if ever you went onto Bloodstained Child's website or Facebook page and you read the profiles of the different members, every single time he made sure to put in bold all caps letters, like loves all In Flames albums. These guys were basically, with this particular album, started trance metal as we know it now. So if it weren't for this album, we wouldn't have this wonderful genre that really needs to be expanded on further. And like I mentioned in my previous video, I can so picture this kind of sound from In Flames. Like, hopefully In Flames will go back to a sound like this, because Siren Charms was a really disappointing album. Sounds of a Playground Fading was okay, but it wasn't that great. A Sense of Purpose to me was like the last album that they released where they actually put a lot of effort into their music. I'm not necessarily saying In Flames cannot advance with their sound and that they must completely regress back. If they want to revisit their original melodic death metal roots, that's cool, that's fine. But I mean, ultimately, it's the band's decision. However, what I would like to see is this particular style of In Flames from this album being combined with the music that actual trance DJs compose, and then I'd love to see the final product of that. So that's more or less what I mentioned in my previous video. So if you haven't seen that video yet, go check that out as well. So yeah, this album has a lot of amazing tracks on it. The riffs are catchy, very melodic. This album has an overall general ambience to it. The album artwork is amazing. The album artwork really reflects the tone of the music, and I'm not talking the alternate cover where it was black and grey, where it had like two figures that looked like they were sketched or something on a completely black background. I'm talking the original cover, which has got a nice selection of turquoise and light blue and some green, and a little bit of other very, if you want to say, relaxing soft colors here and there. It's just a great album cover to look at. Yeah, it really reflects the tone of the music, and like I said, and the few guitar solos that actually are on this album are really well written, especially the guitar solo for Evil in a Closet. That has to be one of my top 10 favorite guitar solos of all time, even though it's quite a short one. A lot of the guitar solos that I enjoy are short ones, but I do like really long ones as much as the next metalhead does. So yeah, if you haven't heard that song yet, I suggest you check Evil in a Closet out if you want to hear a really good guitar solo. And yeah, overall I highly recommend that you guys check this album out. I'd have to give this album a rating of 100 out of 100. And I know what you're all thinking, I tend to rate just about everything within this region, but since I haven't checked out anything new to review for you guys for this particular week, and obviously I've listened to this album so much that it's my favorite, this is the reason why it gets the score that it has. So 100 out of 100 for this album. I highly recommend that you guys check this out if you want to ease into melodic death metal and really appreciate an album that has actually inspired so many other styles of ambient metal that it's just hard not to pass up and skip this album entirely. This is an album that especially metalheads should revisit, because it's not as bad as some of their more recent material. In fact, this album is actually really solid and can stand with even their pre-Root to Remain discography. This is a very solid release, and I highly recommend that any metalheads go back and revisit this album if you weren't a big fan of it at the time. I highly recommend that you go back and revisit it. So yeah, that concludes the review for today. And like I said, guys, I apologize for what happened this weekend, but you will get more content, and the schedule should now start being normal for at least the next couple of weeks until some other shit goes down on the weekend. And I'm glad you guys decided to check out this video. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, comment. What are your thoughts on this album? You can leave a comment either in the comments box below, on my Facebook page, or my Twitter, and yeah, and don't forget to follow me on DeviantArt if you have a DeviantArt account as well. And that concludes this video for today. I am Viking, and until next time, guys, have a kick-ass day.